Okay, hello. It is Jack H. broadcasting from the North American headquarters of the Cheese Room Empire. And here we are on a Friday morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you are, to preview a very important fixture on the weekend against Aston Villa. With me, I've got a great panel, including a debut from someone that we're going to meet shortly. And what's even better, it's a bit of a joke. What's even interesting more is that there's not a single person from the UK on the show. So the international takeover of the Cheese Room is complete, I think I can say. With me, we've got our friend and reliable panelist, JP from Melbourne, Australia. How you doing, JP?
I'm doing good, mate. I'm doing good. And this international takeover, I'm pretty sure the Cheese Room started with an international takeover, and then slowly those Brits just kind of grappled control back, and we're here as they tend to do. But here we are.
That's fair. I was telling Reed that actually this one of the founding members was an Australian, and so it is true. It's always been an international group, and we've been carrying the show for the English lot for the last couple of weeks at the very least. So, and with me, we've got a couple of fellow Americans, my namesake but not related, Jack, Flatcap Jack, up in New York. How are you doing tonight?
Doing well, other American Jack. Yeah, things are good. Things are normal. Looking forward to, I think we continue to say sometimes like biggest game of the year. I think this probably has been at least, the game that everybody has been kind of keeping an eye on in the past like 2 to 3 weeks or so. So I'm very nervous actually. Usually I'm very happy clapping, kind of, overly confident, but not this one. I'm actually very nervous.
Yeah, you should be. And with us is a first-time show participant, and his name is Reed. He's from the Lily White Lab, which you can find on both YouTube and Twitter. I definitely recommend you check them out. They do a great combination of tactical analysis and some financial information. I think it's a good channel. You should check it out. And Reed, down there in Fort Worth near Dallas, Texas, how are you doing this afternoon for you, I guess?
I'm great. Yeah, it is afternoon. We are all probably used to dealing with that time zone difference at this point. If you are a soccer fan or football fan, yeah, really excited to be on. I appreciate you guys having me. Audience will have to excuse my sunburn. Baseball season started, so been out in the sun.
So that's a good question.
Your baseball. That's the starting point. Like, talk us through that one. I don't understand how Americans can go, oh, soccer is too slow, but then their like national sport is baseball.
Yeah, no, that's one thing that my friends have gotten really annoyed about since I've followed this sport. I've started complaining more and more about how long the games are in American sports, and I can barely watch them at this point. I mean, 4.5 hours, like, come on, man.
We got cricket down here, but I think that's like a pain to watch as well. So
it is.
Anyway,
especially baseball being so slow.
Yeah.
Well, I grew up playing baseball, a baseball fan. I don't watch as much as I used to, but baseball is a unique sport. It takes a lot of appreciation for what's going on in the game when nothing's actually going on. But we won't go there. But I am curious, Reed, as a young American in Texas, how you came to football, and particularly, more importantly, how in the world you became a Spurs supporter.
Yeah, so I was kind of like a soccer hater, football hater most of my life. I played it, but it was kind of like my parents just sent me to play so I would run and get tired out. I was a baseball player growing up, but around college, Spurs were a really fun team to play with on FIFA. It was with Bale and Kane and Son were really going. And I started following it a little bit more than when the pandemic hit. I had more time on my hands, more sports to watch, or more sports available to watch with our 6 streaming services that we pay for over here. Started picking it up a little bit. I read Zonal Marking and Inverting the Pyramid during the pandemic, and it really like sparked my interest for the cultural ties to tactics and how each country is different and how the borders in Europe have allowed tactical ideas and just ideas in general about the sport to spread. And as far as becoming a Spurs fan, I have a friend group in DFW who I have like a Twitter group chat with and a text message group chat with. And I kind of asked them, all right, I've been watching for like a year and a half. I'm ready to pick a team, which for me is like the critical point for Americans when they want to start following soccer.
Like picking
football.
your wife or
yeah,
your
exactly.
husband. Yeah.
You have to find a club that you can stick with and that causes you to wake up at 6:30 every morning, or not every morning, every Sunday or Saturday morning and actually get invested in something that's going on across the ocean. And they're like, well, we're Tottenham fans, and they actually kind of mirror DFW sports pretty well. They'll get to finals, they'll have good seasons, and then they'll just be really disappointing, which is what the Cowboys have been since the 90s. And the Rangers are notorious for losing that 2011 World Series on the last pitch of the game. So there were sporting ties to DFW in terms of relatability. So I actually picked it up like full steam ahead when Nuno Espirito Santo was at the helm. So I've been through.
Wow.
So I'm not going
no better time. That was us at our best.
I'm not going anywhere because I started when it was as bad as it can get. Did my mic just go off? Can you all still hear me?
No, you're fine.
Okay. Yeah. And here we are 3 years later.
You are dyed in the wool. I was going to ask, like, you've started developing an interest over COVID. How on earth did you end up at Spurs? Because that was not the period for anyone to end up at Spurs.
It's like a baptism of fire, Nuno Espirito Santo. But you made it out alive.
We didn't even really lose anything over that time because we weren't playing for anything.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's it's funny. So you have two Americans on the show who actually, because of FIFA, ended up Spurs fans. I count myself in that group, although my son was one playing the game. He found a glitch where while playing Tottenham, he could score with some sort of with every single time he shot, it would go in. So he started watching the games online on streams and stuff. And because I'd played, football, soccer my whole life, it wasn't hard for me to get into it. And so, but I at least got in just at the tail end of Redknapp. So I've got a little bit more time on you.
Yeah.
And they were a fun team. I mean, it was not hard to support them in that era. There's a lot of fun, a lot of great players, of course, in that era. So anyway, but we don't need to spend our old time about talking about how Americans become supporters of Tottenham. But we do want to say one thing about our group, just as everyone is a reminder. The Cheese Room is a great place to join. We have a Patreon group. If you're a member, unlike football clubs, we haven't raised our monthly fee since the beginning of time. It's still £3 a month. And we have various contests, chat groups. We have a ticket share for people who are able to go to games. That's very, very, we have a lot of season ticket holders who will give our patrons first shot at tickets, often discounted or sometimes even complimentary. So join the fun. Always love to have more members in the Cheese Room.
If you factor in inflation here, Jack, we're actually saving you money. Like our prices have come backwards. So, true. over a length of period, it kind of offsets the cost of season ticket increases. So, maybe that's what Daniel Levy's looking at. He's going, all these people saving money on the Cheese Room.
Anyway, I like that comment. All right, so why don't we get into it? We have a huge match. I mean, Jack, you alluded to it at the beginning. This is pivotal. We'll get in a little bit about where those extra Champions League spots are going later in the broadcast. But clearly, if you want to make sure you're playing Champions League football next season, you absolutely have to be in the top four. And right now, we're on the outside looking in. So we've got quite a match coming up. So we know what we're up against. Here is the lineup. The last two matches that Aston Villa have fielded. Obviously, the game against Ajax, there was a rotated side, as everyone can see, which you would expect. They got out of there with a 0-0 draw, and although a Konza red card, but they got their away tie done. You would expect them to do the business when they come back home next week. But the game on the left is their last league game, and you can see they've got Pau Torres is probably, I think, now fully fit, obviously, so you expect to see him. I don't think we'll be lucky enough to see Long Lay. But obviously we've got our friend Matty Cash, which we'll talk about later. You got the midfield pivot of McGinn and Luiz. I expect them. I'm not aware of any fitness issues, although I'll be honest with you, I haven't checked. But that's the lineup I expect to see on the left there. So, JP, what is your biggest concern about facing this squad this weekend? What worries you the most?
It's challenging to know what squad we're going to face just because the game that they played last was such a short turnaround. I think clearly McGinn and Bailey will play. Beyond that, I'm not sure. My biggest concern is they've got a lot of pace on the break. Always have. Ollie Watkins is in fantastic form. And interesting that they have saved Matty Cash to play for Spurs, to play against Spurs. And that feels like where you reckon we've got an opportunity to get Romero sent off. But hey, we'll walk through that. I'm not particularly concerned about any one player in their team. They're a good team. I think kind of Ange alluded to it in his press conference. They've got players in good form, but the collective is better than the sum of the individuals. And so they're a really good team. They'll be dangerous on the counter. If I think back to when we played them last time, we played them off the park though. And that's not to say just that we, had more possession than them, couldn't get any shots away. It was no, we had more opportunities. We should have won that game, somehow managed not to. So it gives me some confidence going into this game. Yes, it's away and Villa Park's a challenging place to go, but you've got to take some confidence in.
These are the stats from the loss at Tottenham Stadium. Obviously, I think most people would agree that for large portions of the game, certainly up until the injury to Bentancur, we did play them off the park, but ended up obviously taking nothing away from the match. Jack, I assume you remember that game. I'd like your thoughts or what you're thinking about in terms of the matchup, what worries you, and also since we brought it up, the question is should Matty Cash have his head on a swivel? Or was Tottenham just too nice and this game is too important to get into that sort of thing? What are your thoughts on that?
Lots of good questions there. Weirdly enough, I feel like of all the games that I probably do remember relatively well, this one I don't remember as well. And that's probably because of the XG that is written there and that there were a lot of chances missed in this game. And it felt like that we probably should have taken control and, really had probably won this game. And so clearly I did very good coping mechanism and quickly forgetting about this result and moving on afterwards. I'd say what's makes me nervous about this game is I think it's sort of the game of the undecideds, of like teams this season. Feels like Aston Villa, like, yes, they're in the top 4 sort of candidacy, but like, let's be honest, like they've had some bad defeats this season as we have this, year. Like they've shown signs of inconsistency. Even when they were at the top of the league, they kind of had their own little blip, sort of like we did, right? They were playing Sheffield United with like the opportunity to go top of the league, and they ended up losing to Sheffield United of all teams. I think one of the worst Premier League teams in a long, long time, at home. And we've done a similar thing where we were at the top of the league, ended up, I think, for more injury reasons, but also sort of kind of bottled it. And that's what kind of makes me nervous is these two teams are very capable of beating anybody on their day, but they're also very capable of kind of slipping and being, unconvincing. So it's going to be an interesting one. I feel like Spurs have shown maybe kind of more inconsistency of recent. Another kind of reason I'm kind of nervous going into this game, but considering like how well we did play against them last time out, we also did have a lot of injuries. Like I think the Bentancur injury, of course, happened mid-game. I think we were playing Emerson in one of the crazy positions that we played Emerson in, of all the crazy positions, he might have been playing like left back or center back, if I remember correctly. So we weren't even at our full strength going into this game. And we knew that we should have won. It was, I think, a set piece from Pau Torres or something, now that it's coming back to me, that ended up getting them that go-ahead. So Spurs should win this game if they play at their best, but we haven't seen us at our best in a while now. So that's what really does make me nervous. And Aston Villa, more of recent, have been close to their best more recently than I'd say we have.
Yeah, so it was Emerson and Davies at center back. Lo Celso was on the pitch as a starter, as King Hoddle has put in the chat. And Jack, you probably recall the game. You don't know what time you had to wake up in Texas to watch it. Your thoughts from any tactical standpoint that stands out to you? This is a completely different opponent than what we faced really for the last almost month.
Yeah, it is. I think back, I actually watched the extended highlights of this past Villa game just before we got on so that I would remember exactly how that game went down. And it was a set piece. And then I have my notes here. It was an Ollie Watkins beautiful 1-2 touch where he just kind of split Emerson and Davies on a miscommunication down the middle. You would hope that wouldn't happen with Van de Ven and Romero back. But I look back at that game and kind of looking at the areas of control player-wise, I think Bentancur, he did run that game, but from a different position than what we see Sarr normally run games. Villa kind of ran through that right space just in between their midfield and their fullbacks, which is the area that Sarr kind of covers really well with his long stride in games and just able to cover a lot of ground. I think we have to cover set pieces for sure. It's kind of been a really disappointing part of our season this year is defending on some really key set pieces. And it was also during the Dejan Kulusevski 10 experiment. And I think he had a pretty good game that game. I don't remember exactly, but we were missing Madison at that point, both the center backs. Basuma was suspended, so it's a completely different Tottenham team that's going to show up this time for sure.
Well, and hopefully, though, it's amazing. You think back all the people who were not available in that match, and yet how well we played. And we haven't really seen that form for quite a while. I mean, we've been getting some results, obviously, and the old cliche, good teams know how to win when they're not playing well. But that's definitely been Tottenham for quite a while. They've been getting some results without really playing the same form that we saw earlier in the season. And, I know, JP, I'm sure you're a real big fan of the chorus of minority chorus of people blaming that this Ange ball is a fraud. And it's just it's been found out and it's not really all that it's made up to be. I'm sure you've got some comments on, from a tactical standpoint, what you see has been the problems and whether or not it's a problem of the manager or whether it's been something else.
I've been one of those people before. I've followed a number of Ange teams, so I've had the egg on my face enough times to not try and spin it around when Ange is doing it at Spurs. So the first year with Ange is always challenging. I remember when he started this approach at Brisbane Roar. Brisbane were like near the bottom of the table, not just like when he took over, but like that whole year. Like they lost some games where people were just like, this is nuts. But the core of the fan base were always really behind it. They're like, I can see where this is going. And then the next year they just went and romped everyone, set a national record for the most consecutive wins in any code in Australian football, in Australian sporting history. Wow. He did the same with the national team as well. That was probably the period of time where I was like, I don't know where this is going, man. There's some flaws here. But I think that was more down to the players we had at the time. And he eventually achieved what, the goals that we'd set out to do for that period, which was qualification. We're a young squad. I keep saying this, like the first 10 games offset everyone's expectations of where we should be. Like we definitely got lucky. We remember it as being this like beautiful period of free flowing football. There were some games like where we beat Luton 1-0. Like that wasn't an amazing game of football, but you wrap it up in this 10 game stretch and you go, oh, we were like just dominant and now teams have figured us out. So no, just some things worked out for us in key moments over that period. We're still not playing the football Ange wants us to play. From someone who's seen 3 or 4 of his teams play in the past, it's not quite there yet. And it will get there. I have every confidence it'll get there. It's looking more and more like it each time, but there are some certain areas that we still need to grow in, particularly with low blocks. I'm not as down on us defensively as most people seem to be, because a lot of the goals we concede aren't from the areas where people say, oh, that's how you get at Spurs. Like not a lot of teams are scoring on us by breaking on us. It's happened a couple of times, yeah. But a lot of our goals have come from, it was a breakdown in communication in the back line, not when we were trying to build out, just there was a breakdown in communication and we copped a sloppy goal. So this narrative that like, oh, Spurs are naive, Spurs are ropey, the way we're playing isn't responsible for us losing games. The way we're playing is responsible for us winning games though. And so that's the way I look at it. And I go, you know what? When we're in a better position with a team that is better suited, with less injuries next season, are we on the right track to be competitive next season? Yeah, we are. And so I have confidence on that.
Yeah, so that leads into, that's a natural transition there to the lineup that people are wanting. Obviously, we got the news today at the press conference that Porro is fit. but there will be no one else who has been unavailable who will be available for selection on Sunday. So obviously that rules Richie out and anyone else. So that pretty much means we know who the back five is. I don't think there's any real discussion. So the only real questions, Jack, become, do we, is it Decky or Johnson? I think, if Decky plays, does he play at the right wing? Do he come into midfield, or is Johnson going to stay as a super sub that he's starting to carve out a little bit of a niche for of late? And of course, who do you put in the midfield? Because that is going to be critical to the success of the team on this weekend. So what are your thoughts on that?
I'd go with the first question. I'd go with Decky and at the right wing, mostly because I think Johnson is very much thriving from being used as this impact sub when the game is a bit more stretched. Defenders are more leggy. He has opportunities to take more advantage of there being, space and behind. When the game starts out, it's not really that way. You have to get into the flow of things. You have to be more involved in possession. You have to drop deep, keep the tempo. And those are things I think Brendan Johnson is still sort of working out, kind of fleshing out in his game, where that's kind of more in Kulusevski's strength. He's very good in that regard. Also, without Richarlison, since he's just not available, it will likely be Werner and Sonny, two very fast players, two guys who I think would be poised to run him behind in this game. So do we really need three guys running him behind all at once? I don't think so. I think it'd actually make more sense to have a winger that could actually hold up the ball for us. And that definitely would be Kulusevski. So he could be a guy that would actually catch, some of these Villa players off guard by not always making runs in behind the fullback or the center backs, by actually dropping deep into those half spaces, picking up the ball and helping out also Maddison, who can't do it all on his own in the creative department. And I'd say too, even Maddison of recent isn't back to the same James Maddison that we know he can. So Kulusevski still needs to take a huge responsibility in that sort of creative area. For the midfield, Basuma again at number 6. I think he's, played really well in the last game. I think he will eventually get back to his best self again. And then Bentancur, I think we should probably drop for Pop Matasar, just because Pop Matasar is easily the most consistent player next to Vicario and probably Pedro Porro this season. I think Bentancur deservedly probably started the last game because Sarr probably needed a rest, or I don't know, it just made sense. Bentancur is a great player, but he had his chance. I think clearly didn't impress Postecoglou enough, or just isn't to his best self like we know he can be. And Pop Matasar is playing, the best. I don't think this is the best he possibly can play, but he's extremely consistent and does, sort of both sides of the ball very well, very effectively. And this is a game that you'd rather just go with somebody you're going to get consistency from. And that's crazy to say, but we're going to lean on a 20-year-old, for consistency in this game. And that's Pop Matasar. Just quickly though, on Pedro Porro, I'd absolutely play him over Emerson in this game. Just want to say though, if he's not physically at his best, I'd actually think about just leaning on Emerson, just because defensively Porro will be asked to do a lot. He'll come up against a Bailey or somebody like a Diaby, very quick, very athletic sort of players that are good in one-on-ones. And if you're even slightly not at your best physically, that could hurt him in sort of the defensive aspect. So I know Porro brings so much going forward. It's just that if he's not really 100%, I just think there's a risk of him exacerbating an injury or even getting exposed kind of in some way against those sort of players. So you'd almost go with the boring option then instead of just Emerson, who will defend well in those situations.
Can I echo that
Sure.
If Porro played last game, you start him, but you don't want to lose him for another 2 games because he's so important for us. And this game is the one where I actually think, because of how Villa will play, I'd actually rather put Emerson in at right back and bring Lo Celso into midfield over Sarr.
Just to be safe. Yeah, super
just
safe.
To be safe. Emerson will give you more of that cover, which Sarr is doing for Porro, and then Lo Celso gives you more of that attacking thrust. And I think the balance when we had Bentancur and Lo Celso on the pitch in the last time we played them actually worked really well. And so I think that Basuma Lo Celso combo could be as well.
So if I hear you correctly, what you're saying is that if the doctors are saying that Porro's not 100% completely in the green,
don't play him.
Put him on the bench, and then you put Royal in, and and to compensate for the lack of creativity that obviously, because we all know the drop off between first and second choice fullback is enormous right now.
Mm-hmm.
You then are saying Lo Celso comes in. So you mentioned this, Jack, Reed, earlier that, obviously it was let known, I think after the match last week, that Sarr's nursing a back issue.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I saw in some preview article. I think I had forgotten about that. It might've been, it's been an extended period of time where they've kind of been watching that, maybe since AFCON or right before AFCON. But, I think Sarr is speaking more high level, a good barometer for like new soccer fans or football fans. Like if you watch him and see what he does well, then you're able to watch the sport at that point, because he does so much stuff that's just, it doesn't show up on the stat sheets, like covering for fullbacks, which is something that you'd either have to watch Tottenham a lot or just know about the sport in order to see that. But JP, I think that was a clever shout about if he's not at his, or if Porro's not at his best, then think about bringing Emerson in. For me, it's too big of a game. Like if, I know the trade-offs are there. If you lose them for 3 weeks, then it was obviously you took the loss on that decision. But I think you have to put your best 11 out there if they're able to play. I think our medical staff has just scarred us in general, because we're so used to players coming back, but not either being ready to come back or being ready to come back and then getting injured again right away. So
or staying on the shelf forever.
Yeah. Yeah. Putting off surgery until 5 months later. I would like to see, I think Johnson come off the bench for sure. Going back to that front line. I think Johnson right now is everything that I heard people say with Lucas Moura, sometimes running at tired legs, but Moura was just a chaotic mess on the ball. Johnson seems to have an idea of where to be and how to handle the ball once he gets it, especially if it's on that back post and he's a super sub, and maybe his fullback's gotten a little lazy or his mind's drifted a little bit.
A beautiful chaotic mess.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Move your head a little bit. There you go.
Oh, yours.
I think so. I'd like JP. Let's. This came from John earlier. This is going to be the question: is there an over/under that we can place on DraftKings or Bet 360 or whatever, or on the number of offsides that we might get from both? Sonny's not great, but Werner's horrific, and we've now got a team that is clearly one of the great high line offside trap type of clubs. So what do you think is the solution to preventing us simply playing balls in behind to forwards that are offsides all game?
Don't be offside. That's like, it's pretty obvious. And the answer to John's question as well is like the over is 4. Like it's definitely over 4. I don't think you change anything. I think you just have to persist with the way we're going, because the potential payoff is so huge. Like we saw it with Werner running through last week. Like that was a great ball from Son to begin with, but the danger that he provides, and the more often he can do that, the more teams will have to kind of lock him out, which is going to create space for Decky and Son. So you keep doing it. And if he's offside, he's offside. He almost becomes a foil for you, but he's a foil that people have to be aware of, because if they're not, he will get you. So, well, assuming that he scores. So, she's a big if. But yeah, I wouldn't change anything. I think that play is what we've got to do. We've got players with these qualities. We need to use them. It's up to them to get better at staying onside.
Well, I mean, I don't see this a lot from Spurs. It's every once in a while, but again, not being I don't have a FIFA coaching license, but one of the opportunities that I think presents with a high line is that winger checking in. So the fullbacks bring the ball up, winger checks in, plays to his feet with the defender chasing him up back, and then just peels around and goes in behind. So the ball's launched, and by definition, if you time that right, you're going to be on sides because the ball's already released before you actually have spun and turned. I don't know if we use that enough.
I think one of the reasons Son was so good as a left winger with Harry is because Son was never like beating people on the left. Like he was starting on the left, bending a run essentially, and then going through. And that's how he was able to beat the offside trap so much, is because that first part of his run and the first part of his movement, why people knew he was about to go through was he started running centrally. And so that's, something that Werner could probably learn from, but we do want him to stay wide. So it's just a different system for us to play and for him to learn.
I'd agree with that. I think also Sonny just happens to be easily one of the best runners in the world. Like his intelligence with any time when he's moving, he's always moving into the right space. It's very rare that you see Sonny like when he's moving and he's just making the wrong run. I almost rarely see him make the wrong run, and he usually stays on side. So I'd actually say it's probably 4 over for Werner, not even including Sonny when it comes to these offsides for the next game. But just a quick mixer, just throw something in here. Unai Emery, at least in my opinion, is probably the most definition plan B manager out there. Like, I know most Spurs fans have criticized Ange countlessly for never having a plan B. And yet at the same time, they also want Spurs to have a philosophy and ethos and a way of playing, which I think is kind of contradictory. I think you have to have either kind of one or the other. But Unai Emery, I'll be honest, like he will either set up with this very high line that we're talking about, but there's also games when he doesn't do that. He will put every man behind the ball, and he won't play that way. He seems to be a guy that actually sets up more depending on the opponent than actually how he wants to play. He's one of those very reactive, like, I will play how you guys play, take advantage of your weaknesses, exploit, certain things that you guys like to take advantage of type of manager. I'd say he's probably the most definition atypical, very typical plan B. Like, I have 1,000 different side plans for whatever opponent I come up against. So there's a feeling of mine as well as the other Dave Harris that I work with, that he actually might not play this extremely high line in the game on Sunday. He might go for something like a bit midway, like sort of maybe kind of Martinez and the back line sort of share this gray area space where when we do play it in behind, one of them is going to clean it up, where it won't be the highest of lines as we've seen them play this season, knowing that Spurs could really hurt you if they do try to play that way. Maybe he might set up differently, knowing that Spurs would have a lot of enjoyment playing that way against them.
It's interesting because
guy. He's that guy, Unai Emery. He also breathes with his mouth open, which I think is also a sign that he really overthinks things.
It's interesting because I kind of thought about that going in as well. And my assumption was, well, they played with the high line away, so they're going to do it at home as well. But the realities that we're up against now are a little different in that they only need a point out of this game to kind of make it really challenging for us to kind of get on top of them. And then the other side of it is they did play 2 games ago. So he does have an excuse for being a little more defensive in this game to the fans. Be like, oh, look, the players were tired. We've just turned around two days. I didn't want to expend high energy and risk injuries. So we sat back against a high press team. They have the qualities to do that and to be really dangerous on the counterattack.
Well, this is I think speaks to that a little bit. In other words, according to King, there's a Villa YouTuber, for whoever that is, that says our friend Longley has been performing well enough to retain his place. So Konza going in at right back, who's ineligible to play in the recurring fixture against Ajax since he got red carded. And that means Cash is benched. And that would be a little bit more defensively stable, because Cash is an attacking fullback. I mean, he is what he is. We all know how we feel about him. And if he plays, I hope someone, gets a piece of him. But it wouldn't be shocking if they did try. And you're right, because if they get 3 points, most people would say the top 4 race is over. I still think that top 4 is not over with a draw. The key to this match is we just don't lose. I mean, that's the key. You could survive not gaining ground, but you just can't not come away with points. But yeah, I would think they would see themselves as, if we can just keep it tight, nick a goal at the end type of approach, then we bury Spurs and it's ours. And given their financial situation, which we may come to a little bit later, that's going to be critical for them next season. So one of the matchups I'm really intrigued about watching is, assuming Bailey starts on the right, that means he's going to be going down against Udogie. And I'm curious, I want everyone's opinion. That's the one matchup. If I could somehow like have a focused, a zoom lens on that matchup, that's the one I'm most interested in. Jack, Jack, Reed, we're that I think is a very interesting dynamic because Bailey has been. I mean, I know a lot about Bailey. Americans know a lot about Bailey because obviously he plays in the CONCACAF region, and we see him against the U.S. team a lot. He's having a fantastic season. This is his chance creation. There's another graph I didn't put in the slides that he is in across Europe, one of the most dynamic and wingers and creating chances across Europe. He's having a great season. Obviously, with 7 assists, half assist per game, and he is a problem. This is a really talented player. And I think, it's a different type of player than Udogie's been playing against a lot this year. What are your thoughts here about this matchup?
I think when it comes to Udogie and facing those wingers on his side that are either on good form or great form or are world-class wingers, take Mo Salah, for example, I think you throw the stat sheet, you throw the scouting report out the window, and at this point you just have to trust him because look at what he did to Saka and Salah. Pocketed them for the most part. I also just feel with Van de Ven over there on his side that there's cover and that Van de Ven he's shown he's so much more than just speed at this point. His IQ is shown to be off the charts. He kind of knows where to be, where Udogie's not going to be. Has really been able to pick up the pieces. The few times that Udogie has been lost over there versus wingers like that. And I'm confident. I don't think that side is going to beat us or that we'll look back on that game and say, man, Udogie really struggled with Bailey. But I do appreciate the season that Bailey is having. So my thoughts on that.
JP?
Yeah, I was going to say that you kind of touched on it, Reed, that I actually think he's going to come up against Van de Ven more often because Udogie's going to come in central and try and progress the ball up the pitch. So these areas kind of ahead of the arc, that's where Udogie will be picking up. Everything else in those other positions, that's typically where Van de Ven is. So, he's got to contend with, in my opinion, a guy who we're going to be talking about as the best centre back in the league in the next 2 years. Yeah.
Well, I think that, having watched Bailey play a lot, and I can tell you from an American national team perspective, what you want to do with him is body him up. And I think Udogie or Van de Ven have the size advantage, and you need to be physical with the guy. He's a very quick, tricky person, but you can get him out of his game pretty quickly. You want to be physical with him, I think, and you can knock him off the game. So if you can eliminate Bailey as a threat, then you're dealing with Watkins and Louise, which are their primary. I mean, McGinn's a good player, don't get me wrong, but Watkins is having a fantastic season. I mean, if there wasn't a guy named Harry in the English setup, who would be starting for England this summer. And
if Southgate picks him, if Southgate would pick him.
Yeah, I mean, you could make an argument. I mean, this could be the future of the English, forward line. He's having a great year. He's a very talented player. What I like about this is that he isn't a one-trick pony. He scores lots of different goals. But most of them are in the box. He's not like Harry who can score from distance, but clearly he can score both feet, and he's good in the air. Jack, these are the threats that we have to worry about on a set piece as well. Do you have any thoughts on Ollie Watkins and anything you've picked up on how you contain him? What is the secret to keeping him off the score sheet?
I've always liked Ollie Watkins, mostly because he does what I think is, to a sense, becoming a bit lost on certain players. Everybody nowadays wants the ball to feet. It feels like most players, they want to just come short and receive the ball, whereas Watkins is actually almost the opposite. I think most of the time you see him, he runs into channels, they ping the ball over the top, he runs into those channels, holds the ball up, and then brings others into play eventually. But he's a guy that actually makes a lot of really unselfish runs for that Aston Villa team that helps them get out. And even under Steven Gerrard, where they were playing some god-awful football, he still was good for them at times and just sort of making these runs, behind the center backs and kind of forcing them to run with them. That's another thing too, is like dragging center backs with you with the movement that you do. And Ollie Watkins, I'd say, is absolutely one of those players, a very annoying player kind of in that regard. But I don't really know what you do, maybe other than probably try to pressure him when he does try to hold the ball up to you, in with his back to goal. Because yes, I think he has the speed. Yes, he can run into the channels and he does all that really well. And I'm not really sure what you can do to stop that. But when he does try to receive the ball into feet, he can have a sloppy touch from time to time. I'd say he's not as technically gifted as someone like a Harry Kane is, or other players, and even that Aston Villa team. So someone like a Romero, someone like a Van de Ven, if they dare, I'd say run with him and see if you can nick the ball off of him and kind of bully him in that regard, and just see if he can, make life difficult for him when he is trying to hold the ball up, because I don't think you can stop him from the runs that he tries to make and, him dragging you all over the place. But what you can try to do is maybe just try to see if he can really hold up the ball against you and bring others into play. I actually say he's still a very good player, but maybe more so on his weakness, whereas someone like a Harry Kane, much, much better at holding the ball, holding off his center back, and then, spraying a pass out wide. Whereas someone like Watkins, I think you could try to bully him, and you could try to, at least his first touch isn't always reliable. So I'd say you could try to hurt him in that regard. Just to be annoying, I'd say a key battle that maybe not everyone's thinking about, Timo Werner versus Ezri Konsa, I actually think is going to be interesting, because if they do play that high line, I think Timo Werner wins that race every single time against Ezri Konsa. And it'd be interesting to see if we actually, try to find him, behind. And also Clement Longley, if he does play, would be on that right
I'd
side
love to see
too.
Longley
And that's
play.
David Harris really rates Clement Longley's speed and rates everything about him. So I'd say, just to be annoying, an extra key role, or key battle, should I say, would be a Timo Werner on that left side.
Yeah. Thought anything leaped to mind, JP, on the matchup with Ollie Watkins, or in particular?
No, I think that you guys have kind of covered it. I think, I have trust in our centre backs to be able to deal with each of their threats individually. It's kind of what happens if Udogie gets caught out and Van de Ven has to come across. There's, they have that threat of Watkins running in behind as well. So, I'm not, as I said, I'm not individually concerned about our players matching up one-to-one with them. I think we can go toe-to-toe with them really well. Your point, Jack, about Udogie versus Bailey, if we get physical with him, if we stand on his toes, Destiny's winning that every time. So, I think we can do well, but they're a good team, and they play well and they're smart. And so they're always going to be a threat. We haven't spoken about Douglas Luiz yet. I mean, he's played both of their last two games. Is he going to play the next one? I don't know, but he's absolutely a threat. Mm-hmm. We're talking about Ezri Konsa starting. I think Matty Cash will start. That's what I would do, and that gives them a little bit more physicality against Timo Werner. It'd be interesting to see how he copes with that kind of fullback. Again, I think he's got the pace that he can get past anyone. That's not a problem. It's just, can he get into the groove of the game? And I think Matty Cash's big thing is being able to disrupt players from getting into the groove of a game. So I would be surprised if he doesn't start.
They set up with both of them when we faced Villa last time around. Both of them started Cash and Konsa. So
that's true.
Yeah. So, just one more thing. Sorry, Jack, before you move
go
on.
Ahead. Please do.
I think we'll look back at this game, and Basuma's performance and how we feel about it will probably mirror the result, because he's going to be who we're going to look to in so many of those spaces that you guys have covered in the past 5 minutes, whether it be Watkins runs or Bailey maybe cutting inside, or somebody cutting in behind Bailey while Van de Ven's over on the wing covering for Udogie. I think Basuma will have a big impact in this game, and hopefully he's on it for this one.
We definitely need to see the best of him.
Have we spoken about who we think is going to start? I can't think back 44 minutes to see if we've talked about this. Have we done the lineup?
We kind of did. I mean, I think let's go ahead and finish this tactical lineup type of discussion, and we'll move on to some other topics. So, as I said, I think everyone knows the back five. There's no question about that. So, I think, is the panel all in agreement that Basuma gets a start?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So then the question becomes, and then Madison gets a start. So therefore, the only question is is it Bentancur, Sarr, Lo Celso? So I heard your vote, JP, you're calling for Lo Celso to come in because, or is that only if Porro isn't? Would you start him anyway, or
if Porro's playing and Sarr is fit, you play Sarr. If Porro's not playing and you're playing Romero, I think you play Lo Celso. If you're playing Royale, I think you play Lo Celso.
Okay. And you're only playing Porro. You're only not starting Porro because he's not 100% ready to go.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's 100% ready to go, then Sarr plays, and then your front line is Decky, Son, and Werner.
Yeah.
Correct.
There's an argument.
Disagree?
I'll take an argument for Johnson, but just for this game. But I think that the creativity and the physicality that Decky will give us will be important, particularly early.
Anyone disagree with that?
Nope, on board with that.
On board.
Okay.
We started Heel on the left wing last time around, so at least that isn't
That's right.
that isn't in the cards this time around.
Right, exactly. All right. So this is the situation, the magnitude of this match is clear because I'm not sure this John Cheese from John provided this slide. So I don't know if this is updated from the last week in Europe. I think it is. And
I have the updated one pulled up. I'll check it real fast.
Okay. I think the reality is that England is closer to fourth than they are second. We've got obviously Brighton is out pretty much, which is going to give Italy more points. Freiburg, West Ham is a big deal. I think that England is obviously potentially losing some teams. What was that? Okay, losing some teams next week potentially, and the reality is that unfortunately all of England's results are divided by 8, when Italy and Germany are divided by 7. So every victory for Germany and Italy counts more than every victory from England. And so you really need English teams matched up against German teams to beat them, and you need English teams to win their competitions pretty much. And so it's a tough situation. I think the reality is that most people assumed that England would get one of the extra Champions League spots, and so far it's not shaping up that way. So at this point, 3 points this weekend would be, and John is confirming that the table is accurate. Thank you. That this match this weekend, if you gain 3 points, then you are at least in control of your own destiny, because you're 2 points with a game in hand, and you can actually control your own destiny. Although it's very thin, it's very dubious, of course. So that's the status of the European situations. Hate to rely on other clubs that we hate to watch. The idea of rooting for West Ham, Arsenal, Liverpool, City, that's painful. So I'd rather just not even focus on it and just see what we got to do to get the fourth spot.
The reality is, in the next round, 2 English clubs are going to come up against each other as well. And so,
like City, Arsenal.
Yeah, that would be beautiful. But also entirely detrimental to our chances if getting that 5th place Champions League spot. So yeah, you have to go for 4th. It will be a shock to me if England gets that extra spot.
Yeah, I don't have the algorithm at my fingertips necessary to say if Liverpool win the Europa and Aston Villa win the Conference League, and then City, because no one else is allowed to win the Champions League. I think if they all carry it, that may back up King Hoddle here, whatever article he wrote, that if that happens, then the math would work out for itself.
I think a lot of this is a lot of those maths that people are working towards are assuming that all of the finals are all English finals.
Say that again. Sorry, I missed.
I think to make that work, you're assuming that all of the finals of all of the European Cups are all English finals. So 2 English teams playing. So all 6 of those teams, and it doesn't work out because there's still 3 teams in the Champions League. So the math doesn't work. But
The Italians just cleaned up. That's just what happened. The Italians ended up with an Italian representative in every single final. Fiorentina made it to the Conference League final. Roma made it to the Europa League final. And then Milan and Inter Milan both made it to the semifinals. So they had to play, they could have even had, back in the day, you could have had 2 Italian teams, in the final, but they've gotten rid of that. So just got to do what they did. But I don't want that to happen. I agree. I don't want to be rooting for English teams. But if we were to take a page out of their book, it would be just clean up like they did. They just were in every single final. That's impressive. That would definitely help your ranking.
Yeah. No
Italy's sitting with a 96% chance to get an extra spot right now. They pretty much locked that up. I think
Italy aren't moving. Yeah.
I think this last week hurt England. They dropped from 81% to 64%. Brighton getting smashed by Roma didn't help. They're pretty much guaranteed to go out on the reverse leg now, sitting 4-0 down.
Yeah. Did anyone watch? I didn't bother to watch Brighton and Roma. But I was watching on my phone in terms of just the ticker. That's a surprising result. Well, maybe it's not. Brighton doesn't have any European experience. The lineup was a little bit iffy, but I'm surprised Roma. It's amazing. You sack Jose Mourinho and you start scoring goals left and right. I don't know. That was a little bit of a surprising result. I have to admit.
I don't think it was. Brighton don't have European experience. Like, that's what comes with these sort of games. Like, Roma at the end of the day have been there. Like, are a historic club. They played in huge historic European games. Also, the Italians, like we just pointed out, know their way around a tournament. They have all the shithousery, the dark arts and everything as well. It's like managed games. I just think Brighton, are sadly little old Brighton. Like, they don't know what they're doing, like in these situations against Roma and teams like that. Daniele De Rossi as well, like a guy who's probably one of Roma's best ever players. Like, he definitely knows what he's doing in games like this, despite being a new manager. He probably even got his players up for this game, knowing that I was even listening to the crowd in that game. The crowd never stopped singing. Looked like a horrible atmosphere to be a player in. I just think Brighton will need a few more European games to build that, thick skin, I think, for these sort of type of contests, to be honest.
Brighton's been on a bit of a poor run.
That too.
If you take the Ange context of like people, there's a small minority of people saying, "Oh, no, it doesn't work. Been found out." Why is no one saying De Zerbi's been found out? Why is no one saying De Zerbi's been found out? Man's been found out.
All right, I'm gonna put this back up. That's why.
Yeah, Ange holds an Australian passport. People I think there is a little bit of like people wanting to not be wrong about Ange. Like, how can we get this guy from Celtic? He can't be that good. And then he's like, but I want to be proven wrong. So they want a little bit of fun, but then also go like, yeah, see, he's got flaws. You can't like come from outside of like proven European circles and be great. That just doesn't happen. So I've got all my eggs so squarely in this Ange Spurs basket at the moment that it's terrifying.
Yeah, you do. Yes, you do, but it's okay. I'm happy to have you in that basket. I was going to talk about this, but I think this is actually a good topic. Let's just deal with it for a couple minutes, and then we'll move on and get to some other top non-Villa matchup topics. I'd like to know, Jack. I'm going to go around the horn here. What is your thought on this? In other words, looking into knowing that Spurs, not knowing, but almost certainly that we're not going to run the table and win the league. So as a result, there'll be no trophy again. Is it better to get the Europa spot, or is the Champions League, better? The issue, of course, is financially speaking, and we're going to talk about the ticket rise in a moment. Financially speaking, there's a huge difference, but at the same time, of all the Premier League clubs that are vying for European spaces, we're probably the one almost that needs the money the least. So the question then becomes, what's your opinion? Would you rather see us in Europa, knowing that there's no drop down from Champions League to Europa next year? There's no drop down from Europa to Conference League. That's out. Once you get eliminated, you're done with European competitions. What are your thoughts on this?
I really like the Europa League. I like discovering all these random teams from, like Karabakh this season, and Azerbaijan and teams like that to come across. I think it's always fun. that being said, I think you look at it two ways. Like, if you really want to look at it very simply, very basic, I think Champions League is at the end of the day better for Spurs. I know you said like we don't need the money as much, but it is a lot more money than you get with the Europa League. So you do get like practically like you could buy a Pedro Neto with like the amount of money that you get from the Champions League versus whether it's with the Europa League. So then the other thing I'd say on top of that is someone like Daniel Levy, if he's going to really back someone like Ange, if he really is going to back someone like Ange, like everybody wants and everybody's putting pressure on, you'd say it's more likely to happen if we probably got some Champions League money. Just how I understand Levy, just how I've read him over these last decade or so. But when it comes to overthinking it, if I did want to overthink it, I'd say Europa League is better for Spurs because there's less pressure on us. I think when it comes to the transfer market and like really trying to beef out the squad, trying to get us prepared for what is a Champions League season where like you have to compete on all fronts and you can't really think about playing the younger players as much and that sort of type of thing. We also really want to see younger talents be put into the team, more likely to happen, I think, if we have Europa League games than we would Champions League games. I just think if you really want to overthink it, which I love to do, I'd say Europa League is better for us when it comes to this whole Ange Postecoglou, journey and whatever. But if for the short term, for just simple terms, Champions League is obviously better. It just depends on whether you want to overthink it or not, I think.
JP, I mean, is there an argument saying that if you're in the Europa League, then you're getting Ashley Phillips and Dragusin and other players in that category on the squad, great experience and minutes? Or, is it just Tottenham's too big, too rich? Fans want too much, not too much. I don't mean too much, want success, and you need to be in the best competition. What would your preference be, knowing that you're going to win the games, lose the games, draw the games, whatever happens? But what do you see the advantages of Champions League over Europa League next season?
I fully understand people's position of wanting to be in the Europa League to give the players that are on the fringes opportunity to play because they probably won't get that in the Champions League games. But if we want to be the team we want to be playing against the best teams, and you want to be winning the biggest prizes available. And I think Ange kind of alluded to that in his press conference yesterday or whenever it was. Like, we want to play in the best competitions. So let's be in the best competitions. We want to beat the best teams, win the biggest prizes. So let's be in the competitions to beat the best teams and win the biggest prizes. I'm not concerned about who and how we're developing. If it means that, Ashley Phillips and Dragusin have to play against Luton and Sheffield United, and they can because we've got a midweek game in the Champions League, great. Play them in Premier League games. Ultimately, I want us to be the best team we can be. If the best team we can be is in the Champions League, then I want to be in the Champions League and I want to be playing against those teams. And that's the be-all and end-all of it for me.
Reed?
Yeah,
what are your thoughts?
I'm with you, JP. And Jack, this isn't speaking directly to you, but I'd just say let's not overthink it. I mean, we want to be in the Champions League. If you're interested in playing younger talent or you want to see Ange play younger talent, then let's go further in the cup competitions, domestic cup competitions.
Good point.
I think, and, referencing Daniel Levy and fully backing Ange, I believe that if there's a player on our radar that we're going to need to recruit against other teams for, having Champions League is always going to be a step up for that. And I mean, at this point, I trust Ange in his recruitment. It seems like any player he talks to has the desire to come here. So that's great to have a coach that has a good reputation amongst players, fans, and everybody in general. But let's not overthink this one. We want to be in the Champions League because, like you said, JP, you want to play the best in the best competitions under the brightest lights.
The other thing is as well, like if we don't play our full strength squad in the Europa League and we go out, you know exactly what the fans are going to be saying. This was a great opportunity for us to win a cup. Yeah. Why did we not play our best team? It doesn't you don't avoid this. Let's just go and play the best teams.
Yeah, absolutely.
I miss those conversations, so I miss.
Yeah. I can't wait. I can't wait for them to come again. So, all right. So we'll transition a little bit away from the competitions and the match at hand, because I think it'd be irresponsible not to address this. So this is actually, I think the better slide is this one. It's a little easier to read. This is just a visual to bring into the topic. So obviously Spurs had made the decision this week to increase ticket prices by 6%. And I think probably as important, or maybe more importantly, the concept of the senior season ticket concession, it's a tough one, has been modified. So now right now senior, I think it's 65, you get a 50% discount on your season tickets. And then over the next 3 or 4 seasons, that's going to go to 25%. But what is often maybe even overlooked is that no longer for those people under 65 will they be able to graduate into the senior season ticket discount, because they're not going to issue anymore. So going forward, seniors will be required to pay the full fare. So starting next season with the ticket rise, the cheapest adult season ticket will be £856. The 50% discount means that's $428, and the young adult season ticket price will be $642. This is the time of the show I realize it's probably a little bit unfortunate that we don't actually have someone from the UK, because we have 3 Americans who pay extremely high prices to watch sports. I don't know what it is like in Australia. I imagine it's less expensive than it is here. For context, our opponent this Sunday, Villa, they haven't announced anything that I'm aware of, but last season they increased ticket prices 15%. They also are letting everyone know that they're going to post about £120 million loss.
That's why.
And Arsenal is increasing their tickets 4% and 6%, 4% for the upper deck, 6% for the lower bowl. But that excludes tickets for cup games. So according to Football.London, the average increase for Arsenal fans will be 10%. But they are obviously challenging for a title right now. United's going to increase prices 5%. Spurs were one of the only 3 clubs last year that froze prices and have had 1 price rise in 5 years. So basically, if you include the 6%, that means basically over the last 6 years, it'll be a 1.5% increase. The club is saying that, their costs have increased. Obviously, the cost of labor, food, all that sort of stuff has gone up, and they haven't really been passing the prices on. And I think that it's caused a lot of consternation, because I would venture a guess, I'm not subject to these prices because I rarely go to a game anymore, but I would assume that, if Spurs were, 2 points off top, we're in the semis of the FA Cup, that sort of thing, this might have gone down better. Clearly the online reaction has been pretty aggressive towards the club, and particularly towards the senior, the modification or ending of the senior discounts. The reality is, I know if they didn't take prices up this next season, the increase coming down the pike was going to be even bigger, I suspect. But I think as people are saying, as one of the 10 richest clubs, and possibly maybe having the highest match day revenue of any club in the Premier League, and the second highest prices already, only to Fulham for some weird reason. I don't know why Fulham is higher. This ticket price is just a slap in the face, one more slap in the face to the fans that have been supporting this club for so long. JP, I'll let you start. You're the only non-American here. I don't know if you have a different perspective or viewpoint. I mean, I would love to have a season ticket holder here on the show. That would be great.
Yeah, I mean, I look at how much it costs to have a season ticket. Let's take Ange's a Carlton fan, I'm pretty sure. In the AFL, I was just looking at their site, and I can get a let's have a look here, a general admission membership for the year. Actually, you know what? Let's go to the Legends Lounge. A premium membership is about $900 for the year, which is £500-600 for Carlton. If I was to become an A-League member, $300 for the year. So 150, 200 pounds for the year. Now, the quality of the product we're producing in the A-League is a lot lower. Fully understand that. It seems expensive as a starting point for me, but then if you take that over to the US sports, it's very cheap.
It's dirt cheap. But that's not an excuse. That's not a reason.
No. I can understand if you insularly look at your business and you don't look at anything that's happening around you and you go, my match day operating costs have increased by XXX. I need to recoup those lost costs. A 6% increase and 7.5% increase over a 5-year period of time relative to inflation is not a crazy thing to do. The reality is that is equivalent to 2.5-3 million pounds for Spurs over the space of a year. And that, yes, that's a lot of money, but they can easily make that money with less impact to their core supporter base elsewhere. I understand the math behind them saying, I think they said that the number of season tickets has like 4x. Number of season concession tickets that they were now have is 4x from where they were at White Hart Lane. If you say that the new stadium is twice that, they're saying, hey, hang on, we've just doubled the amount of season tickets we're giving away. So we're not actually making more money. We're making a lot less. If you think about aging populations, they're projecting that to go and say, hey, hang on, if we continue at this rate, there will have been no point expanding to a larger stadium because ultimately the revenue will be the same. The logic of that I understand, but they've completely stripped out the human element of what's made this club great, which is the fans. And you can't just take away the heartbeat of your club and say, you know what, we have to charge you more. You have to pay more for this experience and just throw these people under the bus. We're having conversations about, we've moved to this new stadium. We're still trying to get the kind of balance of support right. Certain areas of the stadium feel a bit flat. We're trying to get more noise in the ground and then go, you know what? All of these people that have been following us and bringing that noise for decades, we're going to price you out. That's what's really hard to swallow, particularly when you consider that relatively for Spurs, making that extra little bit of money could have been done easier or easily through other revenue streams. Add another concert. One more concert, and that's covered.
Yeah. I feel the same way, is that a 2.5-3 million pound increase, it does so much, at least in the short run, does so much damage. But the reality is that Levy, and his crew are finance people, and it's a supply and demand equation. And if you don't renew your season tickets, guess what? There are plenty of people willing to step up and buy them. And that is, It sucks. I'm sorry. It just flat out sucks. I'd love to see them say, you know what, we're going to keep prices level because, we know people are struggling and all that sort of stuff. And the loyalty and the credit you'd get for that would be enormous. But it's disappointing. I mean, I can't say it any other way. To your JP, I think the human element. I mean, in the green room ahead of time, Reed and I we're comparing prices. What did you say you pay, Reed, for what?
For a college baseball season ticket in America, $800. College amateur baseball.
Yeah. I mean, I've got season tickets to a second division U.S. football team that's just 5 minutes down the road, and the women's team. And between season tickets for both, it's more than the cheapest ticket for. Well, that's not more. It's almost as much as a season ticket for Spurs. Jack, do you have any local? You're in a different market? So
I have a better story. My dad, bless his heart, because I am a very lucky boy and very privileged. My dad, I love basketball, especially when I was a kid. I was a big Steve Nash fan. And when the All-Star game was held in Phoenix, my dad is from Phoenix, so he got to see a lot of his old family and stuff like that. So it kind of suited both of us. But we got to go see the All-Star game in Phoenix, Arizona. The price of both of our tickets together was more, I'll just say more, than the price of a season Spurs ticket, just to see one All-Star game. And I got to see Steve Nash for 30 seconds on the court. The other thing too was we were sitting not in good seats. We were very much in the nosebleeds, and very far away from the court and behind a scoreboard, even behind the basket, nosebleeds behind the basket. And my dad paid more that day. He also had to do it through because it was so cheap online or so expensive online, he decided to somehow get it cheaper. So he did it through, I forget what it's called, the people that sell your tickets, out of pocket, type of thing. I'm forgetting the term now, but it's like I was still to this day astonished whenever I hear the prices of a Spurs season ticket.
Are you talking about ticket scalpers? Is that what you're trying to
ticket scalpers. So a ticket scalper, we got it cheap, than it would have been, originally online or something, because they were just trying to get rid of it. That's what he was banking on. Guys just trying to get rid of, nosebleed seats that nobody wanted. And that still is more than
won't even talk about the Messi, the secondary market in America for when Messi comes to town. I actually went to see Messi play in Charlotte, and I won't talk about the price, but I was like, okay, I wanted to see what I consider the greatest player of all time live. So I paid it. That's not an excuse at all. It's interesting because actually, if you go to the revenue increase on the Premier League, if you go back to the founding of the Premier League and you take the revenue increase from beginning to now, it's 2,600%. And I'm a finance guy, so I know how big a number that is. Just take my word for it. If you get 2,600% investment return on anything, you're done working. Just you're out. Okay. But wages have gone up 3,600%. The average wage when the Premier League started was a little over $2,000 a week. It's now over $82,000 a week. I understand the costs are going up, and that is the definition of a high quality problem. The Premier League has been so successful that there's so much money going into it, but at the same time, the players, I don't begrudge any of the players getting. I want them to get every nickel. I don't care about that. It's just the costs have just gotten stupid, and that's the reason why I know a lot of people are kind of tuning out and starting to go into non-league football and that sort of stuff, and I get that. But I will just transition to Oh, go ahead.
Can I say one thing? I think the reality of season ticket prices each year or each other year is like a reality that happens everywhere. Like prices for things go up consistently every year. Like the memberships for the sports we follow over in this side of the world go up. And they tend to go up relative to inflation. So I don't think we're going to get away from this. We can't expect to pay the same thing we did for season tickets 10 years ago today. I don't think anyone really does. It just hurts at this point in time having it. The seniors discount is really painful. If Spurs were worried about kind of the growing capacity of those tickets, I could understand them capping the number of season tickets available, like senior season tickets available.
Yeah, that's what I thought they'd do.
That would make sense to me, and I could understand the logic behind it. But removing it altogether is a bitter pill to swallow.
I agree with that. And the only thing I'd just quickly add is on Daniel Levy. By no means am I his biggest hater compared to others. I think there's a long list. It'd be very hard probably to be his biggest hater. You really have to show yourself out. But I just think this was a year where Daniel Levy, I actually think, was buying back a lot of goodwill with Spurs fans. Like I even made the joke. I made the joke, Daniel Levy's cooking right now. And I think he was earning back a lot of goodwill from Spurs fans. It felt like last year was a lot of Levy out, and this year nowhere near as much. And that's thanks to a lot of things that he's done well and good decisions he's made. And then he's, I think, undone all of that goodwill. In typical Daniel Levy fashion, undone all of it, completely tone deaf to the rest of the whole world, and has sadly, I think, put a lot of people who were probably starting to like kind of buy back some goodwill with him, maybe starting to realize his ways, still annoyed with him as we always are, but starting to, realize his ways. And then it just got completely undone by doing that. I don't like, as much as I agree with you, Jack, like about how much we have to pay and everything. I just, wherever you stand on it, it just felt unnecessary. And it felt like it actually just really brought on a huge wave of pressure onto himself that was complete wrong timing of when he was actually buying back a lot of good faith from Spurs fans. And then lastly, the whole point, I thought, of the extra revenue streams was so that these sort of decisions that he made didn't need to actually happen. If we were doing all these extra revenues and all these extra ways to make money, you would think that would sort of make it not as necessary to increase season ticket prices and that sort of type of thing, because we're making money in all these other ways that no other club is making in the scheme that we do. So I just thought that was a bit contradictory and a bit even hypocritical of Daniel Levy to sort of say like, oh, we need to make up for the money that's been lost. And it's like, wait a minute, isn't the NFL games and the Beyonce and all that stuff for the money that we could technically lose like in a given season? Whatever. It's just that felt also contradictory. And then it's like, are we not earning enough money from these extra revenues, or is it just pure greed? It's one or the other.
Maybe he knows we're about to go spend $100 million on a striker this summer, and he's
he needs the image
bring
rights.
Kane back.
This is for the
Bring
image
Kane
rights.
back.
He was counting it out. He was counting it out. So, we've only got 97. Where can I get 3 from?
I mean, I will say they did make some modifications to the ticket share program, because I've been frustrated with it as a club member, as a one Hotspur member in the past, where if I had tickets I couldn't go, I couldn't sell, I couldn't put them on the exchange. I mean, they've modified some of the policies that allow you to move tickets around for games that you can't go to, or when the fixture times changes. You know, you're in London for 5 days and you think you're going to go to the Saturday game, and that game gets rescheduled to Sunday afternoon, and your plane is out Sunday morning. You had no ability to get rid of those tickets. You just had to eat the cost. And that never made any sense to me, because like I would always say, I'd go on social media and say, you know, empty seats don't buy pies. I don't understand. Here I have a ticket, I can't use it. I'll give it away just so somebody's there. I mean, why?
So there was literally no way for you to give it to somebody else.
Yeah, well, not legally. You could put it on tick. Like the first game I ever went to was actually bought because I didn't know any better. Was an away game at Southampton in like 2016, and I went to a secondary market site and bought them. And I didn't know that I was basically could have walked up to St. Mary's and nothing. And like got kicked out, like not got let in because this ticket was bought on whatever site it was. I've forgotten, StubHub or whatever it was. So I had no idea back then that this, as an American, you're like, well, there's always a vibrant secondary market. And I paid basically a season ticket's worth of prices for that one game for me and my son to go to because of the huge gouging of that I paid. But anyway, sorry, we get away from it.
We want to go.
A couple of just a little feel-good items. I think a lot of people saw this, that the goalkeeper coach and Vicario went to watch a National League game, and Josh Keeley in a game. And it's a nice sign that your first-team goalkeeper is spending a Tuesday night going to a National League, a non-league football game to watch one of the young goalkeepers in the club. I think that says a lot to his leadership. I hope that means he's really happy with the club and is going to stick around a long time. And also, this came out just recently, what Eric Dyer had to say about Ange. And Eric obviously didn't get much time and was never ever considered to give it a chance probably to play in this system. I think everyone probably can concede that he is not well suited for it. But this is a great quote. You know, it's great to, I mean, Eric is a professional. He's not going to throw anyone under the bus, but I also don't think he needed to go out of his way to say such great things about the current manager, who obviously didn't fancy him. JP?
Can't help but say anything bad about the man, can you? He's beautiful, Ange. Lovely fella. No, look, I also wouldn't expect anything less from Eric Dyer. He's not the kind of man who's going to go out and slander anyone that he's worked with, but such high praise, considering the caliber of managers that he's worked under and who he played regularly for is it's pretty impressive.
Yeah. All right, so we are going to wrap up our show with we haven't picked the game, we haven't picked all the fixtures. We'll do that to close out as we usually do on a preview show. But I want to remind everyone at the banner at the below shows you that you can become a member of the Cheese Room Patreon group. We got a great 24-hour-a-day Slack chat going on all sorts of topics. We have our ticket shares, we have our pick'em leagues, we have our contests and prizes, and you get great merch, which I'm not wearing. Also, please smash the like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us out a lot. Doesn't cost you anything but a second and a click on your phone or your computer. So these are the Saturday fixtures. So we'll go through this quickly. Just ask for everyone's prediction. We're going to start with the Man United Everton match, and this is a match that I will probably not watch. But the good news is with United's loss last week gives us a little cushion from 5 to 6 in the table. I suspect this has got a Man United win at a 2-1 count written all over it. JP, your thoughts?
It probably does have a Man United win, but can we just put some positivity out in the air and say Everton 4-0?
I'll take it. I'll take it. Reed, what is your call for this match?
Where is it?
It's at United.
3-2 United.
Ooh, high scoring affair. All right. And Jack?
Beto to miss 3 open goals. They lose 2-0.
Did you see they had him take? Did you see that penalty he had?
Did you see even the goal that he actually scored went off his arm?
No, I
he
didn't.
headed
No,
it onto his arm.
No, I didn't.
Thought it was brilliant. It was like the one goal he actually scored wasn't even a clean contact. It was hilarious. Love Beto. He's my new favorite donkey.
He is. I do love watching him play. He's fantastic. He gives a lot of people hope that they too could be a Premier League player at some point. So Bournemouth, Sheffield. I don't think there are any needs. This is a Bournemouth win. Does anyone disagree?
Yeah, no. Sheffield are the worst Premier League team in years, really in years.
Yeah. Crystal Palace with their new manager, new boss, the same as the old boss, maybe. I don't know. He's the pride of Austria, but I actually I like Luton. They play good football. I got Luton winning this game 2-1. JP?
I am 1-1.
1-1. It's
2-2, I'm gonna say.
Yeah, I think it's got draw written all over it.
okay. Wolves, another FFP basket case, who may be shedding players this summer. Hosting Fulham. Fulham, you can never know. Fulham is either wins 3-0 or loses 3-0, and I don't know. Since they just had a good match, I'm going to take Wolves because they lost last week, I think. So I'll take Wolves 2-1 again. JP?
Yeah, I'll second you on that. That sounds like a good result.
I'll take Wolves 3-1.
Nice.
I'll go against you guys. Marco Silva has given so many surprises this year. Maybe he wins this one too. He's been very funny this year, Marco Silva. Much better manager than Steve Cooper.
No doubt. We all know what we want to have in this next fixture. I don't see Brentford getting a result at Arsenal. Anyone disagree?
Yeah, they'll get a draw.
Oh, I love you.
Again, it's the Everton logic that I'm applying to this one.
Speak it into existence. Speak it into existence.
I could go for a Tony hat trick as an audition for Arsenal.
That'd be nice.
Oh, I love it. Great shout. Great shout, Reed.
Brentford would do a great job by just not losing 5-0. Like that's the one thing that every team, reason. If they don't lose 5-0, that would be a win to a degree.
Can we just put Brentford 3, Arsenal 2 out in the universe? That'd be great.
Brilliant. That's a brilliant shot. I love you, Reed. I love it. We'll skip by. We'll call the Spurs match last. Brighton hosting Nottingham Forest. Brighton rebounds with a victory, 3-2.
2-0.
Yeah, sure. 2-0 for Brighton. All right.
Mm-hmm. 2-1 Brighton.
I'm going to say Brighton win, but I could see it being a basket case of a game because Forest have had so many games where they've conceded like 3 goals, but have also scored like 3 goals themselves. So I could see it being a basket case.
Crazy considering their coach.
Yeah, exactly. That's what's funny about them. Nuno, the opposite of clean sheets this season.
Yeah, no kidding. West Ham Burnley screams avoid. This is going to be not an entertaining watch, I don't think. I could be wrong, but obviously Burnley and Sheffield are down pretty much all but in math. So I'll take West Ham in a 1-0.
Yeah, West Ham 2-0.
I was going to say West Ham 2-0 as well.
I think West Ham smoked Burnley. Burnley are the second worst team I've seen in the Premier League in a very long time. I'd say they're actually worse than Sheffield because at least Sheffield didn't spend very much money and Burnley did. So Burnley probably are the worst team in the Premier League in a long time.
That's fair point. All right. Obviously, the fixture of the weekend, a somewhat depleted, although I think Salah is going to be fit. I haven't checked the news wires, but I think Salah might be fit for this. Has anyone heard?
Don't know.
Okay. Well, if Salah's fit, then I'll take a 2-2 draw result. If Salah is not fit, then I take Man City in this match.
No, you can't hedge your bets. You got to pick one.
All right, City 3-2.
You can go on another podcast and say that Liverpool will win, but on this one, you've got to take one winner. I want to say City, but it's the Anfield factor, isn't it? So like 2-2 feels like the safe result. Yeah, I'll do 2-2.
And yep, people agree with you.
When you said your prediction, Jack, I went to your prediction, JP, and I don't want to copy y'all. I'm going to say 3-1 Man City.
Woo.
I don't think that'll happen, though, but I'm just not going to
Could
double
very easily, though, as well, you know?
Yeah, it really could.
I think this ends 1-1 or something like that, and it ends how it always ends, with Jurgen and Pep like just lathering each other up with love and praise afterwards, and like treating it like it actually isn't a derby, which I find very funny about this game, because the fan bases hate each other from like their recent history, but the managers love each other, these two guys. So
we've read aside, we've all just given this a draw, which really opens a door for them lot down the road. So can we just reverse that and just,
Liverpool
we need
somebody needs to win. Flat out.
I'll say Liverpool wins then. I'll say
Liverpool 7-0.
But I really do hate the handshake after these games between the two. It's so annoying.
All right. So is this Poch's last match when Newcastle come to town and win?
Hopefully his last match is when they lose to us.
Oh man.
That would just be glorious, wouldn't it? I reckon Chelsea will maybe scrape this one. They seem to just pull one out of the bag every 5. So yeah, let's go Chelsea 1-0.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Newcastle 3-2.
Ooh, Sam agrees.
I think Poch is embracing his full agent mode right now, and so he's gonna win this game, buy himself a bit more time, like JP was saying, and then put himself back under pressure. So 1-0 win for Chelsea, buys himself 2 weeks. We come back later.
Actually, at Stamford Bridge, right? This is at Stamford Bridge.
Yeah.
I'll say 3-3 then draw.
He tried to lose to us when they were at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, but in true Pochettino fashion, just nothing went for him, and we decided to implode. Anyway.
All right, and the match that we came here to discuss about an hour and 27 minutes ago, which is obviously Spurs traveling to Birmingham. I have no other way than to vote with my heart and take a 3-2 victory for Spurs. I can't do it any other way.
Aston Villa 1, Spurs 2.
Aston Villa 1, Spurs 3, Johnson winner.
Ooh, getting specific.
Well, I guess 3-2. Sorry, 3-2, Johnson winner.
I also see a late winner in this one. I'm going 3-2 as well. I'm going the same one as you, Jack.
All right. So no one was brave enough or cynical enough to pick a loss. So that's good, which I'm sure means that we'll get a 2-2 result or something stupid. All right. So we've been going longer than I planned, but I think we've done a good show. I really want to thank Reed for coming on the show. This is your first time. I want to remind everyone Reed is with the Lily White Lab YouTube and Twitter account. Please check them out. They do a great job. I really think it's a good watch. And thank you for coming on. I hope to have you back. We probably will have you back in the not too distant future, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, appreciate y'all having me. First one out of the way. Nerves gone. So
yeah, excellent.
I had fun. Yeah, y'all too.
And Jack, coming fresh off the U21 watch, you saw the boys. What did you enjoy that? Did you enjoy that watch along?
Sort of did. It was kind of like annoying to see them concede at the end, despite probably being the better team, I'd say, for the majority of that game. So it was kind of sad to see them concede at the end, but they're still at the top of the league, and they probably will win the under-21s division. So good to see. But yeah, it was okay. It was an okay game.
Yeah. All right. Good. And JP, thanks for getting up. I know you got even to sleep in a little bit this morning.
Just a little bit. The clocks will turn back soon, and I'll be up at 6 a.m. for these again. But it's been good fun chatting to you all about Spurs. It's been a hot minute for me. So yeah, good to get back into it. And
that's a good point about that. Reed, Jack, we fall behind the UK 7 hours Sunday. So keep that in mind for your scheduling purposes and your communications with the Brits across the pond. So All right. Thank you guys for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button. Really enjoyed hanging out with you guys and really great comments from everyone. Thank you so much for showing up. And remember, always ending the show the same way. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you
Come on, you
Spurs.
Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.